Hi, I'm Antoinette Zloty, your host of Transitions, and I'm so happy that you could join us again today. I have as my guest today Mandy Fernie. And Mandy is the General Manager of Valley Gardens Community Centre, and she's also worked with the General Council of Winnipeg Community Centres. So we'll have a discussion and talk about your role and also how you got involved in it, and as well a little bit about the community center and about the General Council and its role here in the city of Winnipeg.
So how I got involved was, well, pretty much I saw a job posting, and that was sort of job hunting. My kids had reached that age where they were at school all the time, and it was post-COVID, so I had an opportunity to start looking again. So seeing that there was a community center in my area, relatively close to me, hiring for a general manager, I thought that sounded interesting, and I went and applied, and then here I am.
So how long ago was that you started?
Actually recently. So I just started working at the community center in December of 2022. So I completed a year a little while ago, and it's been a lot of fun. It was a new challenge, a new learning curve for me. First time working at a community center, but I had been a person always involved in different boards, in leadership roles, of organizing a lot of programs like a school lunch program, dance groups, working at the Scandinavian Cultural Center, organizing programs there. So it was sort of a natural outcome of some of the things I already did on a volunteer basis otherwise, and then getting a job in that field and switching my previous field of work. So yeah.
Oh, that sounds like an interesting way of becoming involved, because or actually being hired to feel that you have some confidence from the roles that you've had before. And so now what is offered there in terms of opportunities for people to sort of get off the couch and transition to maybe a more active lifestyle?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'm at Valley Gardens, and that's located in East Kildonan, end of the city. We're actually smack dab between three schools, right by Kimberley Hill, so where people like to go tobogganing a lot. That's also on some of the grounds that I take care of. In terms of programming, a lot of community centers were often founded on sort of the youth sports model. So we have a lot of youth sports programs. We have soccer and basketball and baseball, those kinds of programs. Hockey, of course, in Winnipeg, hockey. We have 3 outdoor rinks. We have that. And previously, pre-COVID, we had some other programs that ran at our center as well, like some dance and such. That sort of, unfortunately, kind of stopped during the COVID period. So when I arrived, there wasn't any adult programming really going. Our main hall is used by daycare during weekdays, so we are, at my location, a bit limited on what we can offer in sort of drop-in programming. But because of my involvement in other things, one program I recently got going at our facility is called Community Stitches, which we actually just had this afternoon. So I had a bunch of folks in there doing knitting and crochet or spinning and all that kind of fiber arts work during the day while I'm there already. And I had somebody from the community several months ago came to me asking if he could offer free yoga for the community. So he offers yoga twice a week during the day. So those are the programs we have currently, but I'm always looking to see what options there are. And so across the city, different community centers offer different types of programming. I know nearby us, some of the other community centers have some really dedicated active living for seniors programming at their community center. So for example, the Bronx Community Center is close to me, and they have a lot of that programming, which is really wonderful. They work in a partnership there.
So is it costly to take some of the programs, or?
So most programs at community centers are not costly. In fact, they're intended to be quite accessible. So in
Right.
some situations, a group rents the facility and then offers their programming. So we have a Taekwondo group in the evenings that is mostly youth. They do take adults, but it tends to be mostly youth coming to that. And they're twice a week, and they offer Taekwondo. And my understanding is they're quite affordable to have their program. But I at the community center don't operate that program. They rent from us to offer it. And I know there's similar situations at some other community centers. So there's a mix between maybe instructors wanting to use the space to offer programs. I know there's like some Zumba nearby, one of the community centers near me. Or in other situations, the community center might offer it and bring in an instructor or a volunteer.
It sounds like that a lot of the programming was based, as you said, on the youth model. So I know that pickleball has really taken off in a lot of the community centers.
Absolutely.
And catering more to an older adult, and although younger people too can play pickleball, it's not restricted that way. You offer pickleball at your center as well?
We don't have a facility for pickleball, unfortunately.
So you don't have a gym then?
We don't have a gym.
Oh,
yeah,
I see.
we have a hall and then a skate room where people are getting on their skates and such. But we don't have, and we have change rooms for sports. But we don't have a gym, and
Not
we're
yet.
actually
Not yet.
Well, we won't. So
No?
there are a handful of community centers
Oh.
like Valley Gardens that are actually attached to a school.
Oh, I
When they
see.
were built, sort of the community center got space from the school division. And so we're one of those. So I'm actually share a wall and such with a school. And I'm right between two other schools. So in terms of space and where we can build new things, unfortunately, we're quite limited. Other community centers, though, across the city have a lot more space available and are able to put in new buildings and new facilities and develop some more of that. So it varies with each community center and where it is.
So there's been some new buildings constructed for particular areas of the city and so on. So I guess it is probably possible that at some point, right, that particular area could actually have a new building that would be able to accommodate more people in terms of a gym. And it happened
so I'm not
out
sure.
on Henderson with
Yeah.
Bronx Park.
Yeah.
And, I've been out there for meetings with the Barbados Association,
Okay.
and I see it's very flowing.
Yeah, Bronx did some really lovely renovations.
Yeah.
Quite a few
Yeah.
centers have been able to do some really, really nice renovations to their buildings. Like off the top of my head, I know Dakota's really lovely. There's
Oh,
another
yeah?
one out on Main, closer to the perimeter. That's quite nice. And there's lots over the city. So there's a range. So there's also a lot of really older buildings because a lot of the community centers across the city were kind of originally founded in the post-war era. And in that period of developing community centers across Canada, it was sort of this sort of focus on having community centers that, so each region, and of course in that time, Winnipeg was not Winnipeg as we know it now. It was different municipalities. So these community centers would have served smaller communities, right, that have now grown and expanded and then come together in what we now think of as the city of Winnipeg. And it was actually when what we now think of as the city of Winnipeg was formed in like 1971, that's when the General Council of Winnipeg Community Centers was also formed as sort of a overseeing organization that mediates between the city and community centers, because actually all community centers in Winnipeg are actually operated by a volunteer board of directors. Now they receive some funding from the city to cover costs of some maintenance and utilities. And so the general counsel helps make sure that these volunteer boards of directors, right, know what is available and that there's some oversight to make sure we all run our community centers in an appropriate manner. Because if you've ever worked on, volunteer boards, there can be a high turnover. There can be unfortunate blips where there's not a great transfer of information. So not always, but it happens, right? If you've worked on enough volunteer organizations, you know how that goes, unfortunately. So the council, of course, helps to mitigate that, to make sure there's always that access to good information and helping support the board and such. So they serve a really important role. They also help with securing grants to help fund new programs. So in terms of at community centers, we do get some funding from the city for things like utilities and such. And the city actually owns the parks and everything that we're on, and they own the buildings that we are in. But everything about how they're operated is by a board of directors. And not everybody has a general manager like myself or like we do. Some are, especially smaller ones, they don't have a full-time staff or anything. We have enough programming that we do, but not everybody does. And then in terms of being able to build on our capital assets and develop other new programs, or even just develop more at the parks around us, we have to apply for grants from the province or other funding sources to get that money. So last year at Valley Gardens Community Centre, we just finished wrapping up some renovations to all 3 of our baseball diamonds, got all new fencing. In particular, our largest baseball diamond, which is like a large one, got some really beautiful fencing, and it's actually being renamed in honor of a previous baseball convener who passed.
That's wonderful. And of course, you're trying to keep the prices down so that people are more likely to join and want to be a part, right, of the programming and so on. So you can't jack the prices up in order to have more money to do renos and what have you. It's really quite a balance that you have to try to watch. Yeah. But what about security in this day and age where, we're concerned about safety and so on? Are there some safety measures that you know of that weren't in existence before, that you're more careful of now? Even opening times, closing times, and stuff like that, or video surveillance cameras. Have there been changes along that line?
Yeah, I don't know what there was previously or 10 years ago, right? Although I have a lot of folks come through the community center and tell me all about back in their day. But they don't talk about the security systems. We do have like security monitoring, surveillance cameras throughout the building and outside. We do have like an alarm system, and of course secure doors and all that kind of the best we can. When we rent our space, we do always have a caretaker on site, so we always have staff on site as a security measure also. But for us, and maybe because we've been fortunate, haven't had any major issues. We've, of course, like everybody, had some break-ins to our outer facilities. We've had damage. We have people who come racing around on the fields in their vehicles. Yeah, and talking with other folks from other community centers, this is not uncommon. In fact, sometimes I hear stories that make me feel that we're quite fortunate on our things. So unfortunately, there's limits on what we can do, to prevent any of that, of course, right?
Well, you want to encourage people to come out. So, I haven't heard anything seriously happening with any of the community centers. Really touch wood on that. And, and security as a whole, even in hospitals and other places that people go, really need to be ramped up. I mean, not just in a community center, you have to be watchful, but even in our healthcare facilities, they need to be a little bit more care taken. They need to take a look at that. as to who visits and give them pass cards and so on. I know that in community centers, people can come and just even watch an event that's going on if there isn't a fee to get in, right? So I don't know, maybe those days are going to be a bit in the past, where if you come into the building, you should have a reason for being in the building as opposed to just coming to hang out, right? So
Sure.
yeah, there could be some changes like that.
Yeah, and I guess it
ahead.
depends on what kind of programming the community center's offering. Like some community and some resource centers have a lot more drop-in programs, so you would expect to have more people just hanging out. I know at our center we don't have a lot of that. Mostly if I have people come through, they're going to the bathroom, because we do have a splash pad out at the front. So in the summer months, I have a lot of people coming through just to use the bathroom. They have to pass right by my office to do it. So I just say hello and such.
And so, like, in terms of tips that you would give for our viewers at home, let's say, about getting involved in activities at a community center, do you have any suggestions for them, like where they might go to really explore what's new and what might interest them or worth checking out?
Yeah, so the General Council of Winnipeg Community Centers, GCWCC, has a website, and it has an interactive map on there with all the community centers. So you can put in your location, but you can also search by programs offered, and it'll show you. Personally, my first step would probably be to see, what community centers are near me. And then when it's kind of like a Google map, when you click on one of the little icons, it'll tell you more about the community center and their contact information on their website, so you could see what centers are near you and then check out their websites to see what's offered, or you could search by programs offered to find one that's offering pickleball, for example, right? And that's what you're looking for in particular, and see which is the closest to you. So it's a really handy resource. In addition to community centers, though, when people are looking for resources, there's also a lot of resource centers throughout the city, and they're not part of the community center network. So there's not currently any that I know of easy way to find out what all the resource centers, besides like a search engine search. If you put in Resource Centers Winnipeg, you'll find what lots of them are. And they'll also offer really good programming, particularly related to food security, but also health, housing support, and all those kind of things that community centers don't always have the ability to offer. Some of those groups work in partnership with community centers, because that's how something's developed. And other times those resource centers are their own separate facility building that you can drop into. So I do think for viewers it's good to know that those also exist in addition to these. And they'll have activities and drop-in programs too. I know some of the local resource centers close to me have drop-in programs for making and crafting and quilting and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So those also exist.
Actually, the African Community Organizations of Manitoba, Inc., that's ACOMI, they have, they are a resource center, and they do offer a lot of what you said. So that's one that I'm more familiar with. And in terms of community centers, I agree with you. Going on and checking out online what is available. Now, is the city still publishing that recreation guide?
Yeah, the city still publishes a leisure guide and like
a
free programs guide. They actually have both.
Oh, so it's not.
Sometimes they're separate. Sometimes they're together on their website. They can be separate sites or together. But yeah, they do still publish that.
Oh, good.
Those can often be found in the libraries too, which also offer lots of really great free programming if people aren't aware of that. I actually, because I like to support community, a lot of things I'll do at my community center and on our social media is post about other free things like at the library or at other resource centers. And I developed a section of our webpage that lists all the closest resource centers that I have been made aware of for people in my community who might be needing those resources, right? So that's something I like to do as a manager and serving community.
So it must be kind of awkward for you to go to a program at, like, where you're the manager. So do you tend to maybe sometimes try some programs at other centers where you're not the boss?
No, I'm a boss at a lot of places.
Oh, I see.
No, yeah, I participated in actually different places across the city. I had mentioned Scandinavian Cultural Center because my kids dance there and I dance there, and I help with Folklorama
wonderful.
Pavilion there.
Oh, wonderful.
My kids are very involved in soccer,
Good.
and like many parents, I somehow got pulled into coaching soccer.
Oh, my goodness.
So I'm
You're
already
busy.
really involved in other
You're a
things,
busy
so I'm
mom.
not going out to other programs. And then I also help with stuff related to stitching and fiber arts and organizing stuff around that. So I'm not typically going out to other community centers doing stuff because I have enough other things on my plate
your
right
plate.
now, full time.
Yeah. No, that's it's nice of you to share all of that because you know, our viewers certainly are encouraged. I'm sure a lot of people with young kids at home can be encouraged that you can still be an active mom and help and contribute to the community while helping to have influence on your kids, you know?
Yeah.
You know, so
yeah, it's a lot of fun.
That's nice.
I was
That's
recently
really
at
nice.
the Volunteer Manitoba Volunteer Fair and talking with a lot of people who came through. It was really busy, which was amazing. A lot of people attended the volunteer fair. So I attended there with the GCWCC and just talking about community centers and what they have to offer. So somewhat similar to this, although in a more condensed form as they're going through. And what I often encourage people to do is find their local community centers, and if they're there obviously wanting to get involved volunteering, that's why they're at the fair. I don't know what particular volunteer roles are at particular centers, but the other thing I tell people is that there's usually room for development with programs. Like if they want to really be involved and they think that there would be a great program at the community center, that they should talk with that center and potentially help develop something new if there's space and time for it, because that might be what the center's waiting for.
Yes.
I could say for sure at our center, you know, I would gladly take some more volunteers to come help develop new programs to offer to the community, because I can't do it all.
Yeah, no.
So,
yeah.
yeah.
So in terms of your staffing then, there would be yourself.
There's myself. I have a full-time groundskeeper because we
Groundskeeper.
have a lot of grounds that we maintain between soccer and baseball and just keeping up with the litter and so forth, and within the building, machinery and all that kind of stuff. And then I have caretakers that do the cleaning in the evenings.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. So the people who would be running the programs, like now overseeing them, they would be on contract, or are they volunteers as well?
So it would depend. So
Volunteer.
right now, like the people I have are volunteers doing yoga, and that's while I'm already there at the facilities during the day. And I guess I volunteer to run the Community Stitches program while I'm already there during the day. So it would vary on how we were going to offer it, but
I see.
yeah. And I don't know how every community center offers. It's such a different, varied models, right? And whatever's going to work best for their community center.
Okay. So I don't want to put you on the spot, but let's say you could change some things for the future. What do you think, what kind of things would you change in terms of your own center or other centers or even the council? Do you have anything that you'd want to share? Or
I don't know, that's a tough one. Obviously, I would love to see more accessibility for more people to have access to programs, but a lot of that's limited by funding, unfortunately, right? And there's always that ongoing, you know, issue with trying to get some more support from government to support community programs. But Yeah, and there's just the ongoing issue right now with a decline in volunteers and volunteerism. So what I would like to see change is perhaps some more folks start getting creative with their volunteering and helping out where they can would be really great, and that would help all sorts of community programs throughout the city. Otherwise, I think community centers have done well and done their best to maintain aging buildings in many cases, right? That's an ongoing issue. 'Cause a lot of this was developed around the baby boomers, so we're all seeing the age of all these facilities and so forth. So working on that, and I think most organizations have done quite well to be able to continue maintaining and offering programs with what we have available to us. And you know, everybody that I know working at community centers and offering programming, absolutely doing it, whether they're volunteering or as staff, is with a real interest in supporting the community. I feel really fortunate. I know all my staff are very community oriented, and I have a really great team, I call them, who help out and just make sure we're able to offer this kind of programming, because it's work, but also you know you're doing something that benefits the local community.
Yeah.
So
That's wonderful. Now, do you think that possibly a little bit more of a tie-in with the school? At one point in past, it seems that schools were offering some credits for their volunteering in the community and so on. I don't know if that's gone by
they
the
do still do
because
that.
my kids are older.
Yeah, no, they do still do that,
Yeah.
but they have like sort of set amounts of how much volunteering you have to do, and you get like a credit or a half credit. And because
So
I'm
you get
attached to a
some
school, I
kids?
actually work. We don't really have a lot of programs right now that can use a lot of kids, unfortunately, at my community center. Other community centers would be different, but I do work quite closely with the school next to us, and you know, so they use our rinks for skating in the winter, and I'm working with them to try to build a basketball court behind their school, but with community center support. So I definitely work with the schools nearby to try to get things that benefit the community.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. You know, it's been a pleasure hearing so much about the work that you're doing and about all these wonderful community options that are available for people. And I guess all we can do is just ask our folks at home to transition into less couch time and a little bit more community volunteering time. And so I would really like to thank you, Mandy, for joining me today on Transitions. And I would like to encourage our viewers at home to come and visit us on YouTube and check again back on the schedule here with Rogers to see if there are some of the episodes that you might have missed, and or watch the ones that are your favorites. So thank you, and thanks again, and thanks to our viewers at home.